This is Matt Rosen, and this is the Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of the Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, welcome to the Grit Mindset. I'm Matt Rosen, your host. Excited to have you with us. Today, I've got my dear friend, Ashley Lowrance, with us. We're going to hear her story, learn what makes her tick, and hear her perspective on grit. So, Ashley, welcome to the Grit Mindset.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
It's great to have you here. So, to get started, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and the company that you are the president of?
Well, today I lead a company in which I very much grew up. I've been with the company almost 30 years. I can't believe I'm that old, but here we are. It's a contract furniture dealership. It's been in business for 40 years, and we have the pleasure of working with some of DFW's and some of really the country's most dynamic organizations, most discerning organizations, helping them plan and design and execute high-performing spaces, mostly workplaces.
That's awesome. Well, Dallas has been growing like crazy, so I'm sure you guys have been really busy.
We have. We're hoping to see the growth continue. We're hoping to see the city continue to bring in leading companies that want to do great business here in DFW, based in DFW. And we like to grow with clients in other markets too.
Yeah, we'll look forward to digging into that more. So tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe kind of your early life. What kind of got you on this journey here to being a leader of an organization?
Well, I had the privilege of being raised by two parents who really convinced me I could do anything I want to do. Despite my birth order, in which my older brothers frequently, and I'm not disparaging them. I love you fiercely, Scott, if you're listening. They, as older siblings would, they convinced me with their engagement with me that they couldn't believe that I could relate to them, that I could be as competent as them, that I could understand the complexity of their realities. So I very much wanted to prove them wrong from an early age. I very much wanted to be in everything they were in. There was even a moment that I played baseball with the boys as an 11-year-old, and they even put me on the pitcher's mound. So there were some audacious things that I would come to do just to prove that I could accomplish and that I could achieve in a way that my brothers appreciated. Meanwhile, my parents are telling me, you can do absolutely anything. So, but really, I think I was mostly formed by the rigor of a military upbringing. My dad was a general in the Air Force. He was a B-52 pilot. He would ultimately rise through the ranks to brigadier general. And being the dutiful officer that he was, he never argued or declined an assignment to relocate. There were many in the military officers who would choose to not disrupt their families, leave them behind, and go on assignment. But Mom and Dad wanted us to experience what they experienced. Well, Dad wanted Mom and the family to experience what he experienced. So we would go with them everywhere. And I would say that by the time I went off to college, I had lived in 11 houses.
Wow.
In 11 different Air Force bases around the world, or communities near Air Force bases around the world or in the U.S. So I would say the process of finding your seat at the table very quickly became my goal. Finding the seat at the table very quickly became my goal. And I would say that to survive, I had to figure out a way to do it as quickly as possible, in the way that gave me the most connection to the community. Where did I fit in the community? Who did I need to show up to be? I think that gave me a self-awareness, a resilience, and this optimism that if I don't get it right this time, I'll get it right at the next time.
Yeah.
around.
No, I, like you, had a colonel for a father in the Army, and I think I went to 7 different schools, so I'm a few behind you. And you definitely have to make friends quickly. You don't have any. What was just some of the strategies you had to employ to fit in and have that seat at the table as you would?
Well, I think, I'm going to preface this by saying it wasn't all me. I so appreciate the knocks on the door when the moving truck was out front.
Yeah.
And these would be from neighbors who are there to welcome us into the community and introduce us to people that we needed to know. But being new in a new school was never easy. It was never fun. I think what I learned to do was just at first observe. What is this place like? Who are these people like? What do they value? There were times that it wasn't just the Air Force community, that we were in Minot, North Dakota, with people who'd been born and raised there, or the time when we moved into the Panama Canal, which has this incredibly rich and special culture of Zonians. And I knew it was special, I knew it was different, but I still needed to figure out how to connect with the people. So really the first step is always observing and understanding what matters to them and how can I connect with them.
So how did that, your early life, kind of prepare you for what you've been able to accomplish in the business world?
Well, it taught me sort of this experimental thinking, driven by an underlying confidence and optimism that it can never be so bad that it won't work out, or I'll just totally give up. It taught me that I can try something. A person can try something, observe. If it's not working, modify.
Right.
But I know that takes a level of self-awareness that I have, and maybe moving frequently, maybe being constantly critiqued by my big brothers, maybe the pressure of a military family to be on best behavior all the time. Maybe that environment created in me someone who's very self-aware. But I believe self-awareness is important, and it's something that I believe we have to cultivate in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's something we have to try and optimize as humans if we want to reach our goal.
So as you were coming up, you talked about your parents being a big influence, your brothers being an influence, sometimes in a rough way.
Yeah.
Were there others, or would you like to expand upon how they influenced who you are today, or others that you look to for inspiration?
I want to take it back to really my dad. He was such an oxymoron. He was audaciously courageous and confident, but he had this humility as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was a man of very few words, but he commanded a great deal of authority when he so much as said one word or gave you the right look. So I really learned that it's not so much about authority that's given by title. Being a great leader is really more about how you inspire the people that need to come along beside you and perform and endure and be at their best. My parents persuaded me to believe that I could do anything. And I would later meet people in my career who had no belief in me and closed the door. And then I would later have mentors who immediately believed in me. And I recognized that made all the difference. It gave me the freedom to experiment, to fail, to adapt, because I had people that believed I could do it and I could achieve. So I've seen the power in that. And I'm really careful to make sure we continue to cultivate at our company a culture of trust and a culture of belief in each other.
It's awesome that your dad and his experience as an Air Force general was able to, share so much with you that you were able to take and use on a daily basis with your organization.
Definitely a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about grit. So one of the questions I ask everybody that comes on the show is, what does grit mean to you personally and professionally?
I think about an example that I see in my teenage son's life right now. My oldest son is away at college and he's struggling a bit. He's not showing me that he's really motivated to achieve academically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I often wonder, does he have the same grit that I have? How did I miss giving him this fuel to move forward and to go and achieve? And I have to realize, not everybody is built the same way. My personal Enneagram style, I've learned about myself, is a competitive achiever. I don't believe his is. But I think on a moment in his life when he was an adolescent, and he declared in his mind that he absolutely had to be the best soccer player in the city. And he was an average soccer player, but it was his goal that he set for himself. And he exhibited a tremendous dedication to that. He created a vision for how he would get there on his own without us prompting him. And no one had to ask him to get up out of bed. No one had to ask him to put on layers of clothes when it was 30 degrees outside and go practice soccer at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and put together a pickup game of kids and maybe crawl under the fence on a soccer field where he shouldn't have been. He was tenacious, and I haven't seen him exhibit since then. Oh, and he achieved great results, by the way. He became a very accomplished player, and I was so proud of him. And we continue to tell him how proud we are of him for proving to himself that he can do hard things when he sets his mind on something. So although he's struggling academically right now, I know it's about the motivation. So for me, when I think about grit, it's important to kind of break it down into the components that it's built on. And one of those is motivation. You can't give someone a motive. It's got to be inspired by something at a minimum, but it's always got to be self-driven. And as much as his dad and I want him to be a straight A student, so far that's not been his goal. We're patiently waiting for him to choose a goal, and then I know he's got what it takes to press the gas pedal and get it done.
Well, you lead a pretty good-sized organization, based on what you've seen with your son and yourself. How do you inspire grit and determination amongst your team? Well,
look, one of the most important components for me, as I've alluded to, if grit is passion plus perseverance for the long haul to reach a goal, perseverance is insane unless you work around obstacles or you work through obstacles. And the only way to do that is with a combination of self-awareness. How am I doing? Am I hung up on an obstacle? Is there one in front of me I have to work around? Courage to reset what isn't right, what isn't working, which also takes self-awareness. And so I think in an organization, or when I work with people in my organization, it's really important that we have permission to bring self-awareness to the table, whether that's continuous improvement culture, where you have systems and you have frameworks designed to help you identify and isolate what's not working, isolate the variables, experiment, hypothesize, experiment, and then solve. Or maybe it's something a little less formal, like an agreement with someone that I'm mentoring or coaching, that I have their permission to be direct and to be transparent about feedback.
That's really inspiring, the way you think about grit and the way you've really instilled that in your organization, your family, and would love to hear a story about just a real world story how you've inspired someone within your organization that was maybe a little bit off track.
Yeah, I don't want to use a name, but I'll tell you. I mean,
Let's use a
we
fake name.
we have we have a culture. We have a high performance sales culture. I mean, we in my company, we don't really have a true recurring revenue model. So every day, my sales associates have to go out there and they have to create opportunities and compete in a highly competitive environment. They have to win the opportunity to compete. They have to compete. They have to win the contract, and then bring everybody together to achieve the highest outcome. It's a big job, and it takes great resilience. And I had someone who was struggling. He was new to our organization, but not new to the industry, and through a series of trial and error, and really just showing him that I believe in him, and giving him some constructive feedback, he's really achieved great things, and is really a leader of sorts in our company. And I'm really excited to see what he's achieving today.
And that's awesome that you're pouring into others, because that's what leadership's all about, is inspiring others. So, Ashley, I've known you a while, and I understood I've heard you speak before, heard a little bit about your story going from, a sales rep selling, the interior design services and furniture, all the way to running this organization. Can you share with us just some of the steps in that story and what you had to go through to get to where you are today?
Sure. I was bound and determined when I found this industry that I was going to succeed in it. It took me a while to find it. I went to Baylor. I planned to go to law school, despite that I wasn't really passionate about it. I felt like it was just sort of the best thing I could think of, right? I knew I needed to explore and see what else was out there before I dove all in to that. When I found this industry, to me, it was a culmination of creativity and connection with people and business problems, and great design. And I loved all of it. It was also competitive. And I loved that. I loved the fact that I could go out and I could compete and win and really enjoy the thrill of that every day. So I jumped at the chance to enter the industry. No one was inviting me into it. It was my idea after having been a client of the industry. And I had an experience as a client that left me wanting really a better level of service, a better experience. And so I had a vision. I had now this excitement about the industry, which created a passion. And then I had this vision for how I might rise above others in the industry, or someone to give me the opportunity. So I approached someone. My husband and I had just moved to Dallas, and I had my heart set on working for a brand, a beloved brand in our industry. And the gentleman, let's call him Bill, who would make the decision, close the door on me. He didn't believe I could do it. I mean, and it was audacious of me to believe, not knowing anyone in Dallas, really not knowing this side of the industry, and not having any sales experience, that I could just jump into the deep end and swim, effectively and efficiently. But I believed I could. Blame me for being audacious, if you will, but I believed I could, and he didn't. And to me, I guess I had a resilience about me that I knew better. I knew that I could do it, and so I do remember him leaving me with a warning, as he recommended me, as he referred me to Gary Seaman, the founder of the company that I run today, almost 30 years ago. He left me with this warning that in my recollection today sounds very much like, "You're setting yourself up for failure. Are you sure you want to do this?" And, for me, that helped me just double down on my determination to succeed and excel. And then I met with Gary Seaman, and I couldn't rest without telling him that this other guy, Bill, just didn't believe in me. And it was Gary's response that let me know I was in the right place, because he immediately believed in me. And together we were bound and determined that I would succeed, and I did. Thanks a lot to the dot-com boom, I would add. So, I observed. I observed a lot. I was able to sell. I was able to succeed. But as I would go through my career in sales and in this complex delivery, sales and service methodology, I recognized that I had other gifts too that might be even more valuable to a company. So later in my career, the gentleman who told me no would invite me to come and work for him on his team, and I did.
How did that go?
He was welcoming, he was encouraging. I felt like I finally achieved his affirmation.
Did you realize you made a mistake?
This is a very good day. Oh, I don't think he would ever admit it, and I don't know, but my heart didn't follow me to his organization. My heart stayed at GL Seaman, and I just really further developed a vision for the special company that we are, and had always been, and the opportunities that were present that the company needs to really be sure we're taking advantage of. And as the company, wanted to grow, and I could see that there were some things that needed to happen in order for that growth to happen. So I approached Gary Seaman after leaving him, and his partner, who is today my partner, and the owners of our company. And I said, I really have a vision. I want you. You believed in me once, believe in me again. And I will say, the first thing that I did, Matt, when I came back to the company, now I'm back at a company I'd left. Okay, I'm now leading people that I had competed with just a few months prior. Are they going to trust me? How do I know they're going to trust me? So I really rolled back to my days moving into a new community as a kid. What's important to these people?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I show them that those things are important to me too? And so our company had never done any mission, vision, and values work in a meaningful way, and in a formal way. So the first thing I did when I came back to the company in a leadership role was make sure we invested time in that work. And that was my way of saying to the team there, what's important to you? Who are you? What do you value about coming here every day? And this is who we want to continue to be as we grow and as we stretch to reach new heights. We want to do that in a way that honors these values.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just words on a wall. It sounds like you really have embodied the mission, vision, values, and instilled them in the folks. Any advice on how you were able to do that?
Well, honestly, I was skeptical. I had a little self-doubt about my ability. I know I can adapt to change. I wouldn't say I'm a great change maker. I knew I needed to know where they are. I knew I needed to know what is important to my organization, what is important to the people in my organization, before I could lead them to do anything, because that's where you connect with people around that passion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, being a leader of an organization is tough. Having that daily grit is tough. What are some habits you have that really keep you focused and allow you to persevere and show the grit that it takes every day to show up and do what you do?
Yeah. I'm a spiritual optimist. I believe God has a purpose for every one of us. And if I can continue to strive to find the center of God's purpose for my life, I'm going to be in a much better place than blindly trying to be self-reliant. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that it's not all about me, recognizing that it's not all on my shoulders. Not only does that help me unleash the blessings that God has in store, but it also gives me peace of mind knowing that I'm not carrying this burden on my shoulders alone. And sleep, honestly, recharging. I've always been gifted with the ability to sleep well at night. And, 8 to 10 hours is not a problem for me. And it really is the thing that restores my energy. It restores my optimism, and restores a clarity that keeps me calm, and it keeps me focused on what I think is the bottom line, what I think is most important.
Well, it's a powerful.
And then lastly, although when I had kids added to a career, I really regret that I didn't keep a regular yoga practice. But I did learn from my early days in yoga that the yoga breathing, which fills your body with oxygen, really is great at cleansing your body and your spirit. And I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist. I'm sure all of that great oxygen intake is really tremendously valuable for our brains and the rest of our bodies. But for me, I can feel a stress barrier that it creates around me when I take time to be mindful and to focus on breathing and reflection.
No, it's a powerful message. So faith, sleep, and yoga.
And then I think the last component really is being mindful of the self-doubt and not letting it creep in and have too much space in your life and in your heart. I'm sure we all have it. I mean, I have it a great deal, and it's a regular basis. And I have to remember to keep it in the context of keeping it useful. I have to remember to recognize the moments where it might be in jeopardy of hijacking the whole thing, and really just fight against it with self-talk, and that optimism that keeps me in that belief that it's all going to work out. Yeah,
it's a good way to look at things. I think more things work out well than not. You
Yeah.
talked about that self-doubt. Obviously, you probably faced some tough times going from sales rep to run an organization.
Sure.
Can you share with us a story of a particularly challenging time or a failure that you had to overcome during your journey? What you learned from it?
Well, a particularly tough time, I would say, was COVID. There
All
was
was buying furniture, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, we had a backlog of orders going into COVID, so we had really this mixed dynamic where we had made commitments to execute on projects, and it was really difficult to execute because there were lots of municipalities that didn't want us doing anything. There were places around the country where we were doing work, places right here in DFW where we were doing work that at first, right out of the gate, it seemed like we were going to have a lot of headwinds, and job sites quite frequently were shut down because of exposures to COVID. That in retrospect, we now know maybe was a little bit of overreaction, but there was a lot of fear at the time. So on one hand, it was really challenging to honor our commitments, which, by the way, because of the spirit of can-do on my team and the heart for service that everyone on my team really has, we really focused on the client. And I mean, we had guys sleeping in their garages because
Dedication.
they had to be on the job site, but they didn't want to be exposing their families to COVID. So we had people in our company doing tremendous things like that. But then we had this other dynamic where, looking forward at the sales forecast, everything froze. And as I said, our company is not built on a recurring revenue model. So if we're not constantly outgoing, negotiating, and earning new contracts, then our forward-looking funnel is really terrifying. And there was a moment during COVID that we were sure the office was dead and would be disrupted forever. Thankfully, we now see how meaningful people coming together in an office environment really is for the value and the culture and the innovation of companies. But that wasn't the case during COVID. So, we had to make some hard decisions. We had to be self-aware. We had to be realistic. We had to say goodbye to some staff that, many of whom were like family. And what I learned that people valued was maybe a humility that I offered and an authenticity that I don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. Acknowledging the fear seemed to work the best. I had a professor, a leadership course professor, tell me once that, acknowledging emotion is one of the most powerful things you can do before you can lead people. And that's how you give people confidence that you're going to see them. And that's how you help them overcome the fear of trusting you and staying with you and following you places. So I just recognized that if my team could come together on a frequent basis and talk about what could be the worst case scenario here and how might we be dealing with it should that arise, it prepared us for a lot of things and gave us a great degree of resilience and hanging in there and getting through what was really, I think we'll all look back on as the most disruptive moment so far in our generation.
Yeah, it was quite a bit. I'm still trying to get people back to the office. Maybe you can help there. But
We absolutely can.
But no, it's a great story, and it's awesome to see that you've come out the other side stronger and more resilient. So as we're wrapping up here, are there any, you've shared a lot of inspiring moments in your career and how you think about things. Is there final thoughts to share with our listeners that are thinking about, taking the next step in their career, starting a new company, taking a risk, things that beyond what we've talked about so far that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, it's not lost on me that, it's hard to do hard things, and it takes courage. And I think you can build a courage. You can build courage by doing the hard things. For example, nobody likes to make cold calls, right, to people that don't want to talk to you. And it's a hard thing to do if your goal is to create opportunities and that is an important enough goal to you, you will realize that at some point you have to make cold calls. And it's uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the easier it does become. So in that way, I would say, if you're struggling to achieve a goal because you just don't want to do the hard things, you might start by trying the hard things and then seeing if they don't get a little easier. I think that's a pretty basic lesson that I've learned several times in life. And I would also say self-advocacy is important. There was nobody who was inviting me to declare I want to have a career in the industry I'm in. And there was nobody inviting me to be the president and CEO of this company, 15 years ago when I had an idea that I could do it. If an individual early in their career, I would say, if an individual feels like they have a vision for achievement, don't wait for someone to invite you. Be your own advocate. Put together the pitch, put together the vision, show up with passion. I will hire people all day long that present a passion and a determination that they absolutely have to achieve a goal, as opposed to someone that I think has all the right skills, but it's not really clear to me what motivates them.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you've gotten very good at tuning into what motivates people and then inspiring them. And it seems like between the military background and kind of growing up in sales taught you to do that well.
I can always do better. I'm never as inspirational as I want to be. I'm never as quick at the correction as I want to be. but hey, I'm still a work in
Well,
progress too.
you're self-aware and humble. Well, so as we're wrapping up this episode of the Grit Mindset, any final thoughts?
Yeah, encouraging folks to find the right mentors is, I know people say that a lot, but as I think about the people that were safe spaces in my life, they are the people that believed in me. So avoid well-meaning critics and avoid mentors who want to make you better because they don't believe who you are is enough. Find people in your life, in your family, in business, in your organizations, and in your network that do believe in you. That's where the magic will happen.
Any special mentors you'd like to call out?
My business partner, who is someone that believes in me, is incredibly important. And he reminds me that it's okay to fail. And he reminds me also the importance of recognizing when you succeeded, why, and trying to replicate that.
That's awesome. Well, Ashley, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Matt.
You've shared a lot of great insights with me. I've learned a lot new about you and with our audience. So thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Grit Mindset. We'll see you on the next show, and stay gritty.